Hey everyone, today we have Prateek Joshi, founder and CEO at Plutoshift. Now, Prateek is an author of 13 books on machine learning. His blog has readership in 200 plus countries. He's been featured on Forbes, CNBC, TechCrunch, and Bloomberg. You can visit prateekj.com to learn more about him. And his company, Plutoshift, is actually a very interesting platform. It's a data platform for industrial sustainability. So what they do is they help companies achieve their sustainability goals by reducing the carbon footprint of their operations. I have a feeling we're going to uncover some interesting perspectives here. So without further ado, let's jump in. Prateek, welcome to the show.
Shaheen, thank you so much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm really happy to have you and excited to learn more about your journey. So let's dive in. What is the founding story of Plutoshift?
Plutoshift was it was a result of the convergence of two key themes in my life. So I've been a machine learning engineer all my life, a practitioner, a builder. I worked across images and text and mobile and cloud. So basically everything inside the virtual infra. And that's what I did for my entire career. And what I found was that machine learning is very ubiquitous when it comes to search engines. We use it every day. We don't even realize that there's massive machine learning systems powering that. But when it comes to physical infrastructure, machine learning is not nearly as ubiquitous as it could be. So that was one of the key motivations behind launching Plutoshift, is to bring machine learning to the physical world. And the other theme is climate. Basically, how can I use this tool, this skill that I have, machine learning, to solve a meaningful problem? And in this case, happens to be climate. But so within that, we started with water, meaning how can we help companies reduce the usage of water to make their products, to run their operations, and then eventually expanded that to include critical resources like electricity and chemicals. So today, Plutoshift helps industrial companies reduce the carbon footprint of their operations, which means we help them reduce the consumption of electricity and chemicals and water. So that's the bit of the founding journey of Plutoshift.
Gotcha. So, it's interesting because you've built your company around this cause, and for anyone to do that, they need to have a very strong belief in that cause. So where does that come from? What's the motivation for climate change?
Yeah, I grew up in a small town called Gulbarga in southern India. And it's a fairly dry town, and water is not as easy to come by. So growing up, I lived in a couple of smaller towns as well. So growing up, we always had to kind of store water, meaning, hey, you got water on Tuesday. The next time you're going to get it will be on like Thursday or Friday. So until then, you gotta hold on to dear life and have enough water to get to the next time you get water. So it's and again, it's not just me. The entire town lived like that. I'm sure there are many towns in India who still live like that. So it just that kind of leaves a mark on a person. Water is a critical resource, and it's important. And back then, I didn't really know climate change or anything. I just knew that water is important and we don't have it. So that was the starting point of my interest in water. And when I grew up, I started looking into the topic of water. It's just as a hobby, because the profession is machine learning, writing code. But as a hobby, just started digging into what is this? Like, is it just me? Is it just our state, our town, our country, or what's happening around the world? And it's a very key theme, like water security is a very important topic for many regions in the world. So that started my relationship with water and then climate overall, and that kind of led to me launching Plutoshift.
Gotcha. No, very interesting. What were some of the challenges that you faced early on? When you have this idea, you were building a product around it. What were some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, the first part of this journey was customer discovery, meaning who is going to be interested enough in solving this problem, and also how are they doing it today. So first part of the journey was I come from machine learning, so I my entire circle or my network was very tech centric, engineering centric. But the people who manage water facilities in America, they don't, they're completely different network. So step one was doing a lot of outreach, talking to people, just understanding how water infrastructure is handled. Right, just step one, just understanding how it's handled, what's the status quo, and then understanding, okay, is there a solution here that can be built, and specifically, how can machine learning play a role? And turns out, as physical infrastructure, they collect a lot of sensor data like temperature, pressure, flow rates, mostly to report to the government, meaning the EPA says, hey, you cannot, you have to stay compliant. So because of that, they have to collect the data and report it to the government. And that data could be super useful to build a machine learning solution. Because a simple example would be, let's say you're a beverage company, you use like 1 million gallons of water every day to make your product. Now, you buy 100 gallons of water from the city, you clean it, and then you make your product. Now, for every 100 gallons, if you're efficient, you'll convert all 100 into usable water. But if you're inefficient, you'll only convert like 60, meaning 40 gallons is just wasted. It just goes away. So how can we help them increase the recovery rate? It's a very good, simple, clean problem that has a very direct impact on their business. And for the climate, the climate impact is you'll waste less water. So just understanding the status quo and formulating what I call tractable problems, meaning very well-defined, clean problems that, if solved, can benefit the customers. So that was the first big hurdle that we had to pass.
Gotcha. So that was doing customer discovery, finding out if there is really a problem to solve here. And then once you discover the problem, building a solution around it. Now, I've had other guests on this show, as well as, a lot of our clients as well, where the founders, they come from an engineering background, right? Just like yourself. How do you transition from there into, you have a product, but now you got to sell it, right? And that's like the next big challenge. So how did you take your product to market in the early days?
A lot of outbound. I mean, that looking back, I tried a bunch of channels, but it just comes down to simple, an Excel sheet, your phone and your email. Just keep pinging people until they respond. And some of them do respond. That's the best part, is not, people are willing to talk to you if you're willing to talk about their problems, meaning the problems they're facing right about now. So that's how I did it. Like, as an engineer, my first instinct was writing code, automating everything along the funnel. But it turns out premature automation is the root of all evil, and especially in sales. So my first instinct was pick up the phone, just start calling people, right? Or just show up in person, right? Good old outbound works really well, especially because this is it's a B2B, like enterprise software. So you got to talk to people, you got to understand the problems, and then map it to a software solution. So in this case, outbound happened to be the best channel. But today, obviously, as the company grows, you have to activate multiple channels like this. It's content marketing. There is obviously outbound is there. Then there is SEO. There's webinars. There is inbound of all sorts. But the day one, you just have to have a thick skin, and you just have to just roll up your sleeves and do outbound, especially in B2B.
Yeah, that's amazing. Were you did you have like prior experience selling, or was like this is like your first time selling?
Absolutely zero experience. Like, this is in my entire life, the concept of selling never kind of entered my mind. So this would be the very first time I had to cold call people and just talk. And no, I've been like, during this process, people yell at you. People say, never email me again. People say all sorts of things. So it kind of helps you develop a thick skin, because in business, especially in early stage startups, you got to be able to just bulldoze your way through these things. And outbound, I feel, is one of the best ways that develops that muscle. And it's very useful, not just for sales, when you do fundraising or when you recruit, right? Just having that outbound muscle is a fantastic. I mean, it's in hindsight, I didn't plan it like that, but this turned out it's a very useful skill that I ended up picking because I had to do outbound. There's no Facebook ads or there's no LinkedIn ads because the type of people I wanted to talk to, they don't hang out on Facebook. I mean, they might, but they don't buy software, right? From Facebook. So that's why I never had to do sales before this and learned it on the field.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, honestly. And it's one of the most critical things for a startup, from what I've found in our other interviews ourselves as well. It's you have to, like, the founder it has to be founder-led sales in the beginning. And once you exhaust your network, you have to get out of your comfort zone and go into outbound. It's a must.
100%. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go, into present day now. How has your product evolved over the years and what kind of problems are you solving for your customers today?
Yeah, over time, we built a product that has matured, meaning we serve Fortune 500 customers now, right? We are engaged in multi-year deals, we signed contracts, we have SLAs in place. So which means the software has to be reliable, it has to work, it has to integrate into their existing infrastructure, right? We can't, if they're already using Azure, for example, we can't go in and say, oh, you got to use GCP for us to be relevant. No, we gotta figure out how to make it work across different scenarios. So yeah, I would say the maturity of the product has definitely gone up, and along the way we are now SOC 2 compliant, we are ISO 27001 compliant. Some of the very these you needed to sign those big deals with large customers, and we are helping them. We are trying, the North Star remains, we're helping them reduce the carbon footprint of their operations, right? That's always been the case. But the way in which we experimented and the way in which we found out and framed the problem, that has changed. So until recently, we were focused on, okay, we started with water, meaning how can you use software to monitor physical infrastructure that deals with water? And then that expanded to how do you use a cloud product to monitor physical infrastructure of all sorts. But so after a couple of iterations, what really landed well, what worked, what made our customers come on board is this version, basically a data platform that helps them achieve their stated sustainability goals. Now, fun fact, 83% of the companies publicly declare their sustainability goals, and only 2% end up meeting them. Their own goals. The leadership states at 83%, and only 2% end up meeting them. And so that we see that as a very big gap, right? One is it's not like somebody else imposed those goals on them, it's their own goals. So the way, and one of the biggest needle movers for industrial companies are these big ticket items like electricity and chemicals and water, right? If you reduce the chemical footprint, it meaningfully moves the needle in terms of achieving their sustainability goals, because as you know, chemicals it's very carbon intensive. Same with electricity, same with water. So once we identified these big needle movers, we repurpose the product to help them achieve that. So today, that's what we end up doing. We go to a large company. They have their own operations. They usually make a product, like a physical product, and we help them reduce the carbon footprint by reducing the consumption of these resources.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting because in this case, it's not just about the sustainability goals are also good for business in the sense that it reduces your electricity costs, it reduces your water wastage, it reduces your chemical waste, all of the waste reduction. There's true business benefits that are tied in along with the cause as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the other unlock here is a lot of times people, they want to do it, sustainability, they want to achieve it, but they don't want to do it as a separate project. They don't want to spend money to do it. So the best situation is when they do a sustainability project and it reduces their bills. So that's the best. The financial benefit and the climate benefit is the best combo. And more often than not, they use products, they buy software only if it helps them achieve the financial goals. And if there's a separate climate goal, fantastic. So that was another big unlock, is to figure out how can we help them achieve their sustainability goals while making financial sense, basically.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds, and both have to exist. And I feel like maybe that is why it's only 2% of the goals that get met, because a lot of, I guess, the ideas or the ways they would maybe implement it, it doesn't make business sense, right? So
yeah. And another key issue here is tracking the ROI is notoriously hard. Meaning, if you put $1 into your sustainability initiatives, what comes out of it? Answering that question is notoriously hard, because there's so many moving parts, so many departments, and sometimes the operations team, they say one thing, the finance team, they say another thing, the ESG team, they say something else. So agreeing upon a single truth is again, it's very difficult. And because of that, they get wary, like, hey, I don't know, if I put in $1, I don't know what comes out of it. So I may as well take this $1, put it somewhere else. And and again, so that's why we learned how to track the ROI very clearly, so that it becomes very clear to them, what's going in, what's coming out.
Right. Yeah. It seems like a lot of, pivots and listening to the customer and like a lot of that has gone, of course, into the creation of your product. What's some advice that you can give to founders who eventually, who have a product that could eventually serve Fortune 500 companies, but they need to start somewhere, right? How did you do it? Or what's some advice you can give to them?
Yeah. The biggest advice is just start the outreach. Basically, the way I did it, at least, is I just started reaching out to people. And again, when you look at these big companies, there's always groups within those companies that look for innovation, meaning their job is to identify new promising products and give maybe 2 to 3 companies every year, give them a shot to run a pilot, maybe 3 to 6 months. And then if that works, then they'll take that and sign an annual deal or a multi-year deal, take it into production. So if the goal is to serve large enterprise, I would say Outbound is a great way to start. And obviously you can enhance these channels as you grow as a company. But just start reaching out to people and just tell them. I think step 1 was just kind of understanding, meaning the way I approached it. I said, hey, I'm working on this problem, right? And I have a product, and I think it would be very relevant to you. Would you be open to a quick demo? Meaning, just I'd love to show you a demo and would love to understand how you go about your day. So the goal is understand the status quo. That's step 1, meaning don't even ask them, hey, what's your problem? Nobody thinks like that. If I ask you, oh, tell me about your problems, like, I just met you. Like, I'm not going to talk about my problems. But the way to approach it is, let's say in our case, we want to reduce electricity consumption. So I need to understand, hey, how do you handle electricity in the first place? Status quo, forget about software, doesn't matter. How do you consume electricity as a business? Then they'll talk about, oh, we have 200 membranes. We use them to clean the water. And as membranes get blocky, they consume more electricity because you got to pump the water harder, right? It's blocky. So you just understand the mechanics of status quo, and then you identify a kind of a clear, low-hanging fruit. So you solve that, you'll be a hero, and that's your way into the business. So that's how I would say approach enterprise sales, is just listen as a consultant and deliver as a product.
Yeah, I think Prateek, what you're speaking as if you've been doing sales all your life, man. No, I think a lot of, even if there are salespeople listening in, they can pick up some advice, because that is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's asking questions, it's understanding. And I like how you phrase it, understand the status quo. How are they doing things today? And then really listen closely for where that opportunity is. And then, okay, get your foot in the door with a small project.
Right.
I like that.
100%.
Awesome. Cool. So no, that's really good there. How do you see the industry now, evolving as we go into the next 10, 20 years?
Yeah. So the industry in terms of I'll talk about it and from two different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
One is the SaaS industry, which we are in, and the industry we serve, which is the physical world industry. So SaaS, obviously, I'm a huge fan of SaaS. I'm very bullish on the entire market, regardless of the downturn we are in. I think the market is going to continue to grow rapidly, and a couple of key themes are emerging as we enter 2020s, right? So it kind of, if you look back and say the start of the last decade, right? It's early 2010s. What was happening? So cloud was becoming mainstream, right? Cloud was gaining adoption, and many companies were becoming cloud native, right? So a lot of companies, it wasn't like, oh, we started on-prem and now we got to adapt to the cloud. No, they had many companies were built, we are born in the cloud and we'll only stay in the cloud, which, I mean, today, if they're young founders, all of this might sound, of course, we're cloud-based. What are you talking about? Yeah, for people listening, there's something called on-prem, right? Before cloud was there. And people used to go to the offices and install software on their local machines. It was terrible, but it did exist. So what's happening right now is many parts of the stack are now commoditized, which means if you want to build a SaaS business today, almost every single part you can just buy off the shelf, right? It's, oh, you want to send an SMS to a customer, use Twilio, right? Oh, you want to integrate video conferencing, yeah, Zoom has an API. If you, let's say if you want to track your customer relationships, Salesforce or HubSpot, right? If there's so many tools that already exist that you can almost spin up a business by just stitching the right tools together. Now, what's going to happen next is obviously I'm in machine learning. So machine learning is seeing a lot of those trends. Right? Last decade, machine learning became very commoditized, and now there's so many APIs available to build businesses on top. So I'm seeing a lot of machine learning being infused into SaaS products to kind of turbocharge them. So that's a trend I'm seeing a lot in the market. Like simple example, let's say you want to create marketing copy, right? And you don't want to write the entire paragraph yourself. So you click a button and an AI writer tool will just write the paragraph for you based on your own tweets. Like you just tell it that, hey, here's how I write stuff, right? Just go through it and write something like I would. And it just gives you a good starting point. And then you can edit the paragraph, change it a little bit. And so it's almost like a co-pilot. It's not replacing you, but it's going to get you like 80% of the way there. And that's what I'm very excited about, is these ML infused tools. That's going to, if you know how to write, it'll make you a lot faster. If you don't know how to write, it won't help you, because you got to know how to write. So it's going to boost you. It's not an engine by itself. It's like if you have an engine, it's going to nitro boost the whole thing. So that's how I look at it. So that's a trend I'm seeing in SaaS. I think it's a very good trend. Now, the other industry I was talking about, which is physical infra. The last decade, all the companies spent a lot of money on instrumenting themselves, which means they installed sensors, they connected the sensors to the internet. Now they have a nice data warehouse that's collecting all the data. Now, how do we put that to use, right? We invested all this money into collecting the data. What can we do with it? Oh yeah, we can use the data to reduce our electricity bill, or we can use the data to increase the throughput. We can use the data to be collaborative with the teammates. We can use it for so many different projects. So that's what I'm seeing that the industry is heading, is a lot of cloud software being infused into physical infra, and it becoming more ubiquitous.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's really interesting because there is so much data there now, and you make a good point that they spent the last decade putting in the instrumentation, and now they have the data, and if they were just able to make sense of it and use it, they would be able to improve their operations like 1000x, like more efficient or something like that. So that's interesting. The other side, and I want to get your opinion on this, what do you think about situations where AI and machine learning can't work because there just isn't enough data coming in, right? I think there are a lot of industrial problems where there isn't enough data. So what do you do there?
Yeah, yeah. There are two approaches to it. The first approach, and this is my favorite, if you can do the work without using machine learning, do it, right? Definitely, like machine learning shouldn't be the first place you go to, right? If you can do something without machine learning, fantastic. Meaning it's deterministic. You can use a formula to be very, very reliable. So yeah, just go for it. The other approach, where let's say that the goal is to predict a failure. Prediction is very much inside machine learning, right? Prediction.
Right.
So, and if data isn't available, there's a new subfield formulating within machine learning called small data. Meaning, we all know big data, where there's a lot of data, you build a model on top of that, and then you use it. But in physical world, physical infra, there isn't a lot of data. More often than not, it's lack of data. So for that, there are many small data approaches being built where you can build models based on a limited amount of data, and then you go from there. So that's the approach I'm seeing that kind of works, because you're absolutely right. It's in the physical infra world, data is not nearly as big as we have in the virtual infra. So definitely, so two approaches in my mind.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard of small data. I'm going to actually look into that. Everyone knows about big data, right? So
yeah, actually, I would recommend. So Professor Andrew Ng, he's been a big proponent of small data, and so I would say, and obviously he's a phenomenal educator of AI. So I would say read his material to understand more. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good. Appreciate that. And as we wrap this up, Prateek, and this is just in general, it doesn't have to do with sales or anything, unless that's where your feedback is, but what is one piece of advice that you would give to early stage founders that are listening in?
Find your ikigai is what I would advise. It's a Japanese concept. I'm sure most of you have heard of it, but for those who haven't, ikigai is a Japanese concept. It means find your reason for existence, meaning be it startups or career or life in general. It's find something that sits at the intersection of four things. Right? One, something you're good at, something that you love, something that'll get you paid, and something that's good for the world. So if you find something that sits at the intersection of these four things, yeah, that's you'll be able to keep going for a very long time, because at the center of this, there's very, very little friction, very little mental friction. So you won't feel like, oh, this is so boring, or I'm tired, let me do something else. So this area of very, very low friction means you can go for a very long time. And when you do something for a very long time, compounding kicks in, meaning just by the virtue of the fact that you did it longer than anyone else, you'll just be better than like 99% of the people out there. And that's where the real magic happens. So I would say, and again, it's something, it's not like you have to be born with it. You can sit and think it through and find what sits at the intersection of these four circles. So yeah, that's my one lesson.
I love that. And I think that's like one of the most unique pieces of advice we've heard on the show. So thank you for sharing that. And what is it? Ikigai?
Ikigai. Ikigai.
Ikigai. Got it. Cool. Awesome. Prateek, if our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active. Feel free to reach out. And I'm happy to talk and be a sounding board. You can email me, prateek@plutoshift.com. I'm happy to provide my thoughts on any topic of interest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Prateek, for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.